Hello, everybody, and welcome to Jack's Corner. I'm Tarzan Bonanno, and with me, as always, is our founder, Jack Figgle. How you doing, Jack?
Good, Tarzan. Glory to Jesus Christ.
Glory to him forever. So, you have Light of the East 4, correct?
That's right. It was our fourth ecumenical pilgrimage that we took last summer, July of 23. And it was, as happens with these trips, everyone is unique and different and seems better than the previous one.
Awesome. So, bring us to it. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So this was uh, following up from our previous Light of the East pilgrimages. This time I went back to using Viking travel to make the arrangements. And we had a desire to go to the Holy Land. But we decided, as we'd done in the previous Holy Land trip, we went to Rome and Istanbul as well, being that far, and just felt that was way too much to put into one trip. So my idea was we would do one trip to the Holy Land and then go to Istanbul. Another trip to the Holy Land, we would go through Rome. So we did the Istanbul first. Given current events, it was lucky, and I think God's inspiration, that I was debating whether to go in July or October of 2023. July being hot and not crowded, and October being cooler but crowded. And I chose July so we didn't have to face the crowds. And I'm so glad, because otherwise we could have been in the Holy Land in October 23 when Hamas invaded and the war broke out.
Yeah, not the most ideal time to be stuck in the Holy Land.
No. So we were so glad that we went when we went. We had a small group, only 20 of us, plus me, and Bishop John Michael was our spiritual leader. The group was only half the group that I knew. The other half just sort of showed up. They signed up. It's open to the public. And so half these people I had not met before. And so it's always a risk as to how well the group's going to get along, spending 2 weeks together, getting on and off buses and in and out of hotels and all that. But it all seemed to come together. It also was one of the most widely ecumenical groups in that we had a couple of Orthodox, a couple of Roman Catholics, and mostly Greek Catholics. But we also had every office of the church. I myself, being a reader, we had 2 subdeacons, a deacon, 2 priests, and a bishop, all in the same group. So when we had liturgy, we had every base covered. What I thought I'd do for talking about this particular audience that we had with Patriarch Bartholomew is to read a chapter from the book that was written about our trip by one of the members. Her name was Sophia Martin. She was a teenager who came with her parents and her brother on the trip, and she wrote memoirs. Took the notes of every place we went. And in fact, in the preface to the book, Bishop John Michael comments that he didn't think he was on the same trip she was after he read her book,
because she saw something totally different than he did.
That's right. She saw more spirituality in all of these places that we went, than he even did. And so he was very grateful for her to capture that. So what I thought I'd do is read the chapter of the book that covers our audience with Patriarch Bartholomew, so that we can get a firsthand account from a third party, not myself, of what took place and her impressions of that meeting. And I think that would be sort of a different take on my audiences with various leaders and with the patriarchs that we've been talking about in this particular series.
So today is not Jack's Corner, it's Sophia's Corner.
Mm-hmm. Precisely. So I will just get into it and get started. So it was July 14th, 2023. This day was extra special. At 11 o'clock, we were scheduled to have a private audience, especially arranged for our little group by Mr. Fiegel, with the Ecumenical Patriarch of Constantinople and Archbishop of Constantinople, New Rome, His All Holiness Bartholomew I. The Patriarch occupies the first throne of the worldwide Orthodox Christian Church, presiding in historical honor and fraternal spirit as, quote, first among equals, close quote, of all Orthodox primates. He transcends national and ethnic borders. The Ecumenical Patriarch is spiritual leader to 300 million Orthodox Christians worldwide, and he has worked to advance reconciliation with the Roman Catholic Church and the Anglican Communion, as well as other Christian confessions, through theological dialogues and personal encounters with respective leaders in order to address issues of common concern. Moreover, he has initiated numerous international meetings and conversations with Muslim and Jewish leaders in an effort to promote mutual respect and religious tolerance worldwide, but especially in the Middle East and the Mediterranean, thereby proving a pioneer in interfaith encounters throughout the world. That's all a long quote about the Archbishop of Constantinople from their website.
You know, you said that she was a teenager. She writes better than most professional writers. I would forget that, or if I didn't know based on the episode we did months and months ago that she was a teenager, or the fact that you said it just now, I would not have come to that conclusion by that writing.
No. And it gets even better. So here we go. We arrived at the Patriarchate well before our audience, just in case. Once there, while waiting for it, we visited the church, St. George Cathedral, the same church we had visited on the first day upon our arrival. As to be expected, Mom ran to her friend and remained glued by him and prayed. Her friend was St. John Chrysostom, and she found his relics in the cathedral on our first visit on our arrival. Dad, my brother, and I roamed around and discovered that on the right aisle of the church towards the iconostas, the screen separating the sanctuary from the nave, there is the column of Christ's flagellation. I found out that, quote, the church claims that this is a portion of the column to which Jesus Christ was bound and whipped by Roman soldiers before his crucifixion. It was supposedly brought to Constantinople by St. Helen, mother of the first Christian emperor Constantine. And that's a quote from the patriarchal website as well. She goes on, that was another unexpected surprise. We remained in the church for quite some time and were able to pray for all the people at home who had asked us to remember them in our loved ones and those in need. At 10:45 a.m., we entered the main building, were directed upstairs, and were asked to be seated in the audience room where we were to meet the Patriarch. Although I knew the Patriarch is not in union with Rome, our beloved pastor had told Mom we could ask him for a blessing. Some of us did just that. Anyway, we waited about 10 minutes, just enough time to become anxious and eager. At last, we all arose as His All Holiness walked in. He signaled for us to sit and then read a welcome message. Its main theme was unity. I wish I had memorized his exact words, but they expressed the wish for a future in which we would all be in union with one another in Christ. Do I need to say how I felt? I could not believe my ears, and I kept looking at Mom, who smiled back at me and nodded in equal amazement. The Patriarch then had a brief exchange with Mr. Fiegel, who gifted him a book and received a gift book from the Patriarch. Then we all went one by one to greet him and receive a gift from his hands, a small cross and a card. On the card, there was a picture of him embracing Pope Francis and an icon in the background of Saints Peter and Andrew, also embracing. East and West coming together. I was one of the first in line, and when my turn came, I kissed his hand, and he tapped me on my head, commenting, quote, "An ecumenist," close quote. Behind me, my brother asked him for a blessing too. Not only did the patriarch give him a blessing, but he also gave him a kiss on his head and a tap on his shoulder. It was a very touching moment for all in the room. Mom asked for, received a blessing too, while Dad received just the card and the cross. Once the patriarch had greeted everyone, shoot, I moved the screen and lost my place. I have to start that sentence again. Here we go. Once the patriarch had greeted everyone, we sang to him many years in English, Old Church Slavonic, and Greek, and then he left the room, only after remarking as he left that he liked the Greek version the best. I knew little about him, but he struck me as a very holy man. He had a humble presence all about him. I'm truly glad we were able to visit with him. He's in my prayers now too, and I have taken his word for me to heart. Once again, ecumenism was center stage.
Yeah.
So that was Sophia's report about the audience. It was, again, a very warm, friendly gathering. And she mentioned that she and her brother got a private blessing from him as we all walked up one by one. And that was sort of a surprise to everybody. I asked for that when we walked in, and they accommodated us. But it was, it brought a lot of us to tears. She and her brother are a couple of years apart, but they both have a hereditary handicap that they have implants for their ears, or their faces are a little distorted, as are their hands and feet, and they have difficulty walking. And as 17 and 18, 19-year-olds, they're only about half as tall as they should be in terms of height. And so when her brother came up to get his blessing, the patriarch bent over and kissed him on his head. And it was just such a touching moment for everybody in the room to see the patriarch go out of his way to give this guy a very special blessing. It's amazing. You can, I think, tell from her writing, the two of them were extremely smart. Benedict is 19 and has already graduated from college, has a bachelor's degree. And Sophia is just turned 17 the day we left on the trip. And she's already a freshman in college.
Yeah. Listening to that section that you just read, I loved that she didn't assume that the reader knew either, right? She explained what each thing was. She didn't just say it and then move on. I mean, I assume they're Eastern Catholic because it's definitely sounds like they're in communion with Rome, and that she knew what they were, right? They're Eastern Catholic, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, she didn't, based on that reading of that, it didn't sound like she expected the reader to be, or to be well versed in Eastern tradition. And that was just fantastic.
Yep.
Very clearly very smart. Put any quote unquote handicap aside, again, would not expect that out of a teenager, period.
No, that's right. And the whole trip, they were with us, and I had not met them beforehand, so I didn't know who they were. All I knew was there was this family of 4 that had paid their way to go on our trip. And I knew they were teenagers from their passports. And I was just hoping that, things would work out. They would not be rambunctious, running around sorts of kids. They were not, of course. They were very, very, they were probably more spiritual and, more humble than most of the rest of us. And the love that they had for their parents and that their parents showed to them of, ignoring their handicaps and treating them as regular adults, just inspired the rest of us for the entire trip. It truly was a blessing to have gotten to know them. Um, and let me just maybe conclude here with her concluding remarks that I found at the end of the chapter, and that is that she writes, after our audience, we went back for an official tour of the church led by one of the Orthodox priests. Mom said one last prayer and received a special blessing from her friend, St. John, and we left the Patriarchate. So her mom, not realizing that the relics of St. John Chrysostom were there, had a special devotion there and received a blessing by being in front of them. And she had, according to Sophia, had made a commitment when they signed up for the trip several months before, that she intended to read every single thing available that St. John Chrysostom has written. And Sophia commented to me at one point that she didn't realize what kind of a job she took on, but it may take her a few years to finish it.
And then she got surprised by St. John Chrysostom himself, just being around.
And her parents are quite special too. They're both university professors in New York. So it was great to have them on a trip. It was great to have them. And then another couple that were on the trip was an Orthodox priest from Texas with his 16-year-old son. And so we had 3 teenagers on the trip that, became friends, sort of palled around together, and were inspiring to the rest of us who were, well up in years. So it really, really was a great group. And our audience, as she mentioned, I gave the Patriarch the small monograph that I published with Deacon John Chrysostom's Field lecture about unity and a few of his other essays. I gave him a copy of that, and then he gave me a copy of one of the Patriarch's latest books on the climate. So we just had a great experience. Patriarch met with us for about a half an hour, I'd say, and it was one of the highlights of the trip, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like the first time we talked about this that it was an amazing trip. And just here focusing on Patriarch Bartholomew still sounds like an amazing trip. And just the way you're talking about it, I can see why it seems like... who wrote the foreword?
Bishop John Michael.
Yes, I can see why Bishop John Michael was like, yeah, I wasn't on the same trip. Because these kids were not normal. Just they were,
and it was fun because at the end of every day, the tour guide would get on the bus and he would ask the group, like the school teacher does at the end of the day, "Now, class, what did we learn today?" He would get on and say, "Hi, everyone. Now, where did we go today, and what did we see?" And and so he'd ask all these questions to the bus. And the 2 kids were up in the front row, and they were always the ones with their hands up. They knew everything, and they learned and they studied. The rest of us just went along for the ride. And like I said, throughout the book, she noticed details and things that even the bishop missed about all the places we went and the things the travel agent. She was so, I think, sort of into her journal and what she wrote, that she could now be the tour guide. She was so good.
And while they were well learned and studying and focusing on the stuff, it's very clear from at least one thing that I wanted to point out, that it was more about love than the knowledge. She referred to St. John Chrysostom as their friend.
Yes,
It
that's right.
wasn't just, oh, it's so cool that we are literally at the burial place or near the body of St. John Chrysostom, but he's our friend. And so the truth of 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter,
Yep.
I can do all this stuff, but if I don't have love, and
Yep.
you can hear the love even just by talking about that.
That's right. And they were there out of love for him.
Yeah.
And he was truly present to them, so that they could love him back, and he could love them through all these centuries. So, because of course, the throne that the patriarch sits on, even to this day, is the throne of Chrysostom.
Yeah, and even with Patriarch Bartholomew himself, the way that she received his blessing, and I don't mean just like physically being receiving it, but I mean like the way she internalized it. Like she's home and she's praying for him right now, most likely, right?
Yep.
The love that she has for ecumenism, and just unity within that area, and the respect that she has for Patriarch Bartholomew, despite the fact that we are not in full communion, the love is still there.
Yep, that's right. That's right. So if I could just close up with two little commercial announcements, and one is for everyone to watch this space, because next year, at least tentatively, we're trying to organize Light of the East number 5, be an ecumenical trip to Nicaea is really the target place because of the 1700th anniversary of the First Ecumenical Council. And we will, this time we will go to Rome for a few days, and we will go to Istanbul and Turkey. We will not go to the Holy Land because of all the danger and so forth there. And of course, we will go see the Patriarch. We're hoping that we'll be able to have close-up seats at the general audience. I've been told, because of his age and his health, the Pope is not scheduling any private audiences at this time. But the last time I went with a group, that was a special experience, standing up on the front steps, looking down at the entire St. Peter's Square, with 100,000 people looking up at me and saying, "What's he doing up there?" So we're gonna try to schedule that, and then go to Nicaea itself, as well as visit the ruins of the 7 churches of Revelation throughout Asia Minor. The highlight being Ephesus. And the other commercial announcement is, if you enjoyed the chapter I read from Sophia, the entire book about our 2-week trip to Istanbul and the Holy Land is available on the EC Pubs website, www.ecpubs.com. Just do a search. The title of the book is That They May All Be One.
The link will be in the description.
All right, there you go. So we'll add the link to the book itself that you can buy online, and read all the rest of her stories and impressions of the places that we went to on that great trip. So, all right, that's it for today, Tarzan. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
Everybody, thank you. God bless. Bye-bye.